Hello everyone, Jason Alea back here again. I reviewed all the theatrical releases of Jurassic Park already, and I've enjoyed most of those films apart from Dominion. I enjoyed it when I first saw it. You could check out my initial review on my main channel. Nowadays, if you saw my new updated review on this channel, you would know that I kind of was disappointed with the film overall. I didn't think it was as strong of a conclusion as I hoped it would be. And that is mainly due to the fact that the first act of the film is very choppily edited, and a lot of the ideas it presented, while good, I thought it could have been explored in a bit more detail, and in that way the movie would have been a lot more satisfying. That first act was so choppy that the pacing was all over the place for this film, and because I didn't care about what happened initially in the beginning of the film, I didn't care much or thought about what happens later on. Now, when it was announced that there was going to be an extended cut, I was interested. Jurassic Park is never a franchise that is prone to having extended cuts or director's cuts of their films. None of the films had an extended version released. They had deleted scenes. You could go back and check them out, especially for The Lost World. There's a bunch of deleted scenes in that film that should have been in The Lost World, but there are a few deleted scenes. While some are superfluous, some are really important to get the full context of what is going on. And Jurassic World Dominion is one of the more serious examples of that, because what they included in this 14-minute longer version of Jurassic World Dominion is so important, and it paced out the first act so much better, having me care more about what happens later on. We understand more about why the locusts are made, and we get a better sense of who the characters are at this point in time of the film. It was just a much better cut. 14 minutes may not seem like a lot, but it did so much for this film to where I will safely say that this version of Jurassic World Dominion is the only one I will ever watch going forward. I'm never going to go back to it again. I'm only going to go for the extended cut, because what this version of the film did for the film was significantly better and a lot more compelling and satisfying as a conclusion. Still, if the ideas of locusts did not really latch onto you, it's still here, it's still part of the story. So if you really didn't like the film, I don't see yourself being that enamored with it, though I will say that you might find it a lot more enjoyable and a lot more cohesive than the theatrical cut. If you thought it was okay, or if you liked the film, you're going to have a much better time with the extended cut, because one of the first things that this extended cut did was add back in the prologue that was released with Fast and Furious 9. Cutting that out of the film, to me, was the biggest detriment to the final battle and the first act of the film, because it sets up a lot of the dinosaurs we're going to see early, giving us a sense of scale of these dinosaurs, and just have us look back at what dinosaurs used to be like back in the Cretaceous period in this universe of Jurassic Park, having us understand where these animals came from by going back to where it all began, which leads us to a really cool battle between the Giganotosaurus and the T-Rex from the past, setting up the final battle a whole lot better, because not only do we get to see these two dinosaurs first and foremost in the entire film, and we get a bit of a character arc for Rexy as the movie goes on. We also see how the DNA came from the mosquitoes. Then we transition to that drive-in theater, and where we see Rexy now, getting us a sense of scale of the dinosaur between the people. And we also understand that these dinosaurs are out there causing problems, and we see more of dinosaurs wreaking havoc across the world. So cutting all that important information out and just only open with a 20-second Mosasaurus attack to then and now this segment was a terrible idea in my opinion. While I understand they wanted to create buzz in terms of visual storytelling and having us understand the story going forward and getting us a good impression of what's going to happen throughout the course of the film, cutting this part out was a big mistake in my opinion, and putting this back in just shot this movie up to a positive grade for me. Even if nothing else changed in the film, adding this prologue back in was the best decision the filmmakers could have done, and it made the movie so much more better, at least in my opinion. Then later on we get a few more extended scenes of characters interacting with each other. We get a much more cohesive and better edited scene of Sam Neill's introduction as Alan Grant, and him having to come to terms with who he is now and how he's having a hard time relating to people who might be infatuated by dinosaurs today, considering that now dinosaurs are all over the place. We see that better shown in the extended cut when he's interacting with a couple of girls who are disbelieving or not caring about whatever he had to say because there are actual dinosaurs out there now. Maybe not 100% complete versions of dinosaurs, but they are out there, and people are more infatuated by that, what they can see and touch, like what John Hammond said. And the introduction to Laura Dern's Ellie Sattler is a lot better. It starts off the same in the theatrical cut, but then we get an extra scene of her looking at the locust and experiencing what it looks like, getting some samples, and we learn a bit about who she is now and how she also interacts with kids. It's a nice character introduction to have us understand what kind of person she is now. And that better transitions us to Alan Grant's introduction to when we first meet him. As Ellie Sattler says, she needs a second opinion, which perfectly sets up the next scene to happen. Seriously, so much of this film in the first act was cut terribly out of the film, and it was a mistake cutting all this out. Especially the little moments of Maisie in town where she's just walking around. I feel like all that could have been kept in. Even the little scene of Blue and Beta hunting is also extended because we actually get to see a velociraptor kill someone in this film. While I know we see the Pyroraptor later, and the Atrociraptors do kill some people off screen, seeing Blue attack one of these hunters is just a welcome sight to see, because this movie kind of defanged the Velociraptor in the theatrical cut. So seeing that added back into this first act of the film was a lot better. And my favorite introduction out of all these character introductions is Rain Delacour's scene with Chris Pratt's Owen Grady. Once Owen catches a parasaur, Rain Delacour tries to poach it off him, which sets up the rivalry perfectly between these two characters. Dialogue later on doesn't feel as weird or out of place.
They found her!
What? Who are they?
Poachers! I've seen them around. Leader's a real shitheel. He must have recognized me, followed me here.
And the fight that they have in Malta feels a little bit more impactful. Overall, these are all the major changes to the first act, and with the prologue added back in and some extended character introductions and pacing the story out a lot better and editing it a lot better in that first act, really helped make the movie come to life for me. It made me care more about what happens later on in the film. And there's some moments later on in the film that I wanted to give more of a positive note, because this is more of a positive review of Jurassic World Dominion. I really liked the Dilophosaur introduction scene. I thought that was pretty tension filmed, and I really like its animatronic that is moving around. And seeing Dotson get killed by the Dilos by the end of the film is a nice character arc that comes full circle with him in the first film, and how it ends with Nedry being killed by these guys. The franchise now ended with him where it started. It was a nice little coming full circle moment for the film. I also really liked the Quetzalcoatl set piece, which later leads us to a fun scene with the Therizinosaurus that is very reminiscent of The Lost World in terms of its tension. That entire sequence was great. And the final battle, as I said before, feels a lot more significant and important to the story and doesn't feel out of place. We see the T-Rex and Giganotosaurus early on in the film, which sets up their rivalry a lot better, because we get a couple of individual scenes between these two dinosaurs, with the Rex in the drive-in theater and Giganotosaurus getting a bit of a nap time later on, as we get quick glimpse of it, and then these two have a little bit of a scuffle later on, but then we lead to the Giganotosaurus attack on the main characters, which then perfectly sets up the final battle when everything comes full circle and the T-Rex and Giganotosaurus fight each other once again. There's even a few callback shots, like the shot where the theropods are circling each other is very reminiscent to how it started in the prologue. So seeing moments like that come full circle is really satisfying. I even like the little bit where the Rex is having an anime flashback to 65 million years ago of her ancestor. Visually, I don't think it's supposed to be that. I think it's just something for the audience, but it's a cool little over-the-top thing to think about with this sequence, and it just made the death of the Giganotosaurus feel a lot more impactful. And speaking of the Giganotosaurus, it didn't feel as threatening in the theatrical cut because it didn't kill anyone. But seeing the Giganotosaurus kill a T-Rex early on in the film sets up the threat of this dinosaur a whole lot better than the theatrical cut. And then the ending of the film is mainly the same as what was in the theaters. But what I love about the ending with the prologue at the back end was how the first shot of the prologue, which is technically the first shot of the start of the franchise, starting with the sun rising, and the movie ends with the sun setting. Again, nice full circle moments are lost in context in the theatrical cut because we did not get to see all of this. Overall, I still think Biosyn Valley is awesome in a nice location, but I would love to have seen more dinosaurs out in the wild, though thankfully with the prologue added back in the drive-in theater, that is fixed a little bit. I really didn't like how Dodson was portrayed here still. I think he was fine overall, but I still felt like he could have been a lot better. I felt like he could have been a little bit more interesting if he was built up a lot more and the locusts were built up a lot more, and I feel like the movie still could have been a bit more cohesive if the entire trilogy set this all up. But this extended cut is a much better version of that. We even get to see a new scene where Mama Duathi's character is interacting with Dodson, and they talk about why the locusts were made and their purpose, and why Biosyn and Dodson are trying to delete all the files and evidence. They want to control everything. They want to use dinosaurs as sort of a cover for what they want to do. They don't really care about saving the planet or controlling the dinosaurs. They do want that kind of control, but only for their own means, not for the betterment of the world. And adding that scene back in made Dodson a bit more compelling as an antagonist. Overall, this extended cut of Jurassic World Dominion is a lot better than what we got in theaters. It's a lot longer, but the pacing is much better. The first act is better edited. It is a lot more compelling as a finale, and a lot more satisfying as well. And something that I forgot to mention throughout these Jurassic World reviews is that the score, at least, is great. The score for the first Jurassic World I really enjoyed, especially in Fallen Kingdom. And in Dominion, I think Michael Giacchino did a pretty good job emulating John Williams' themes while bringing in a new flavor for this new trilogy. And overall, I think he did a pretty good job in that regard. Jurassic World Dominion is still not perfect. It's still not a perfect movie. There's still a lot of problems. Some effects here and there with the animatronics don't work as well. The antagonist could have been a lot better. The story could have been a lot better set up if it was something built from the course of the trilogy. There's still a few more dumb decisions. I still don't like the introduction of militarized dinosaurs, and I felt like the villains are a bit too over the top at times, mainly the lady who was like a James Bond villain. And the action is a bit too action heavy. It could have used a lot more horror elements. But this version of Jurassic World Dominion is a lot better, a lot more satisfying. I will say that I like this version better than Jurassic Park 3 and Fallen Kingdom. I just found this to be a bit more enjoyable, especially bringing in all the cast from the original film and the new world films all together. It felt a lot more satisfying in this version, as we get to see better introductions to their characters throughout. I even love the scene where Alan Grant is talking with Maisie in the caves and is trying to reassure her to come with them and that they will keep her safe. It is a nice scene, and I really thought it showed Alan Grant's growth from the first film to now very well. This is a better cut Jurassic World Dominion, and if you're going to watch this movie, I would recommend watch this version only. The theatrical cut is choppily edited and is a bit of a mess. This is a lot more compelling, a lot more engaging as a story, and a lot more entertaining as well. And so for that, I'm going to give the extended cut of Jurassic World Dominion a B. Also, this little scene of the Lichiosaur versus the Oviraptor is the most epic thing in the Jurassic Park franchise, and no one can tell me otherwise. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you guys next time.